Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar series number 4. And the topic is about food safety in the production of fermented foods. By the way, my name is Joanne Iko, and I'm also with Diane Santia. And to Sir Justin, thank you for joining us this morning. After the presentation, you are allowed to ask questions to Ms. Olga. So without further ado, let's start this webinar. Hi, Ms. Olga.
Hello, good morning. Today we'll talk about the food safety in the production of fermented foods. So, the points of discussion for this presentation is first, we'll define what fermentation is. So, we'll focus on lactic acid fermentation. Then we'll discuss the process for making kimchi and atchara and some preservation methods or storage for kimchi and atchara. So number 4 is the shortcomings in the preparation of fermented foods. So what is fermentation? So fermentation is one of the oldest methods of food processing. So it serves as an affordable and manageable technique for food preservation, especially in the absence of facilities for home canning and refrigeration. So it's also low cost and can easily be carried out at the household level. And examples of fermented food products include breads, beer, wines, and cheese. So what is the principle behind fermentation? So fermentation actually utilizes microorganisms or enzymes that are present in the food, and these microorganisms and enzymes develop desirable flavors and prolong the shelf life of the product. So there are actually three types of fermentation. First is the alcoholic fermentation. Examples are beer, wine, and breads. Acetic acid fermentation. The second one is example ay vinegar. And the third is lactic acid fermentation, which produces yogurt, kimchi, and other pickled vegetables. So for this presentation, we'll focus on the lactic acid fermentation. So here, I'm just showing this kasi I've mentioned before na fermentation utilizes microorganisms, di ba? So not all microorganisms are bad or deadly or poisonous. So meron mga good bacteria tayo na tinatawag. So example doon ay lactic acid bacteria na napoproduce ng yogurt, ng kimchi, and others. So we also have yeasts. The strain usually used for alcoholic beverages and breads are Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which produces ethanol, carbon dioxide. There's also weak molds na we use on soy sauce. So an example is the Aspergillus sojei. So what is lactic acid fermentation? So from the word na lactic acid, so we use lactic acid bacteria or we call it as LAB, which are present on the surface of fresh vegetables and fruits and in human urinary tract and mouth. So an example of LAB is the Lactobacillus casei shirota strain, which is contained in Yakult. So lactic acid fermented foods are considered probiotic foods due to its many nutritional benefits. So this is the principle behind lactic acid fermentation. So the LAB present in the raw material or the ingredient forms lactic acid, which then prevents the growth of food, poisoning bacteria and molds. So lactic acid fermented foods are preserved by the high level of acidity, which yun nga, lactic acid, in the form of lactic acid dun sa food. So pickles prepared by fermentation are not heated. Therefore, strict attention must be paid to cleanliness and hygiene. So kailangan malinis lahat since hindi tayo gumagamit ng heat dito, especially in kimchi. So this is the general parang formula for lactic acid fermentation. So we have the LAB, yung bacteria. We have the sugar, which is ginagamit nila to to produce carbon dioxide and other organic acids. We have the salt para mag-increase yung lactic acid dun sa food, minus the oxygen, since LAB doesn't grow in food na maraming oxygen or food product na maraming oxygen. Then, we have the fermentation time. So, yun yung bumubuo do sa lactic acid fermentation. So, some important points for lactic acid fermentation. Temperature will determine the length of time. So, later we will discuss the effects or the effect of temperature dun sa, yun nga, sa length of time ng fermentation. So, this should be done in an airtight container. Then, fermentation continues even during storage. So, mahalaga na kailangan ilagay sa cold chain systems or sa refrigerated temperature yung product. So, using greater amounts of salt will slow down the fermentation process. And do not ferment the vegetables in a very warm room as this will speed up the process. So, we'll discuss this later. Let's proceed to kimchi. So, kimchi is a traditional fermented Korean vegetable food which is consumed as cold side dish. So, there's actually a survey, national survey, no, on Koreans na yung consumption nila ng kimchi. So, male Koreans consume 50 to 100 grams of kimchi per person per day. But in winter, nagdodoble to. So, usually, they consume 100 to 200 grams of kimchi per day during winter. So, kimchi is traditionally prepared to preserve and enhance organoleptic and nutritional qualities of fresh vegetables during winter in Korea when fresh vegetable supply is limited. So, ito yung way ng pag-preserve nila ng vegetables during winter since, syempre winter, hindi masyado nag-grow or hindi talaga nag-grow yung mga plants or vegetables. So, originally, it's considered as a home product, but is now produced and distributed commercially. So, we can see it in cans, glass bottles, plastic containers, or pouches. So, the major ingredients in kimchi include either oriental or Chinese cabbage or radish. We also have spices such as red pepper, garlic, green onion, and ginger. And we also have salt pickled seafoods. So there's actually 200 types of kimchi, but there are two major groups of kimchi. So we have the ordinary kimchi without added water, and the second is the mul kimchi with added water. So examples of the ordinary kimchi include this one, bichu kimchi, and this one, the radish. And these two are examples of the mul kimchi. So here's a general process on how to do or how to make kimchi, no. So ito for bichu kimchi siya. So we have the raw materials. So the major raw material is the Chinese cabbage. Then the other ingredients include this one, the spices, the seasonings, and other optional ingredients. So um, i- i-divide lang natin yung process into three major steps. So the first one is the Chinese cabbage, which is the major raw material. The second one is the brining, and the third is the fermentation. So for the raw materials, the product characteristics of kimchi are significantly affected by the quality and variety of the major ingredient. So it will depend on the variety of if it will be Chinese cabbage or radish. So harder vegetables are preferred since they avoid softening during storage. So garlic retards the fermentation, improves shelf life, and lessen the acidification of the product. Ginger, on the other hand, is full of antibacterial compounds and slow down fermentation. Hot peppers stimulates fermentation. Fermented anchovy and shrimp are rich sources of protein and give off unique flavor. starch and sugar used as a carbon source of the lactic acid bacteria and thus promote fermentation. So let's proceed to the second step, which is brining. This is the most important step for fermentation and preservation. And this can be done by either brine solution or dry salt. So why do we do this, no? So brining, the salt in the brine solution inhibits the continuous growth of these microorganisms, allowing the lactic acid bacteria to grow and ferment the pickles. So na-mention ko siya earlier na ang lactic acid bacteria nag-grow siya in low salt content. So dito nag-i-increase yung rate ng growth ng lactic acid bacteria during brining, which 'di ba nagfo-form nga siya ng lactic acid na nag-i-inhibit sa growth ng other microorganisms. So in vitro kimchi, brining is carried out for 1 to 15 hours depending on the salt concentration and temperature. So the optimum salt concentration is at 2% to 3%. If less than the optimum, fermentation may proceed too fast, which acidifies the product and softens the cabbage and other ingredients. Now, if it's over 6% salt concentration, color and flavor of kimchi are not acceptable. So, optimum lang is 2 to 3%. Now, this is the purpose of brining. So, it reduces the moisture content of the product as well as the weight and volume of the cabbage. It increases the salt content in the tissues, thus inhibits growth of molds and yeast, and it increases the lactic acid bacteria present in the product. So let's proceed to fermentation. So kimchi is processed or is an example of lactic acid fermented food by lactic acid bacteria or LAB. Such fermentation produces various compounds such as organic acids, yun nga, lactic acid, pinoproduce niya, and other acids like malic acid or taric acid. Ganyan. It also produces carbon dioxide, ethanol, vitamins, bacteriocins, prebiotics, and other flavor compounds. These compounds make kimchi nutritious and delicious. So fermentation occurs mainly because of the microorganism present in the raw materials. So yun nga, depende sa ingredients mo kung ano yung present na LAB na nandun or other microorganisms. Thus, fermentation cannot be controlled, so the quality of the fermented foods can vary from batch to batch. Salt concentration, temperature, and pH greatly influence the rate and extent of lactic acid fermentation. So, these are the three factors that affect the lactic acid fermentation: the salt, the temperature, and the pH. So, fermentation is finished when the pH reaches 4 to 4.5, yung pH 4 to 4.5, and acidity of 0.5 to 0.6% lactic acid. So, here's a tabulated data on the optimum fermentation time during fermentation of kimchi by salt concentration and temperature. So we can see here that as the salt concentration increases, the fermentation also decreases. This is time in days. So pag tumaas yung salt concentration, let's say 7% versus dun sa 2.25%, makikita natin na 10 days to 16 days yung 7% versus dun sa 2.25% na salt concentration na 2 to 3 days. So the salt concentration as the salt concentration increases, the fermentation decreases. So we also have temperature na if we do the fermentation in a cold temperature storage, it will slow down the fermentation process. So makikita siya here. Example, 30 degrees, which is malapit sa room temp. Mabilis lang, 1 to 2 days yung fermentation. Versus dun sa kimchi na ginawa sa ref, which is 35 to 180 days ang fermentation time. So there's also a study that kimchi can be prepared with 3% salt and fermentation at 2 to 7 degrees Celsius for 2 to 3 weeks. As I've mentioned earlier, higher salt concentration and lower temperature prolong the fermentation process. Higher temperatures stimulate production of carbon dioxide, and excessive fermentation can cause tissue ripening and severe acidity. So for the preservation methods of kimchi, we have the cold storage since yun nga, so kimchi should be stored in refrigerator or cold chain systems, especially in household, and makikita natin sa grocery nasa chiller siya. So reason for storage in cold chain systems, fermentation still progresses even during distribution process. So syempre kailangan nating i-slow down yung fermentation. Kaya kailangan natin siyang i-store sa ref. Ayaw natin siya mag-over-ferment kundi masisira yung product and ma-affect yung quality. So for the shelf life, it takes almost 1 month to reach over-fermentation. As such, Korean kimchi manufacturers have assigned a shelf life of 28 days even under refrigerated storage. There's actually a research on the shelf life of kimchi, no? They stated that to extend shelf life of kimchi up to more than 3 months, the use of low temperature pasteurization, which is 60 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes, and low temperature storage is suggested since pasteurization delays kimchi fermentation. So at household level, when kimchi ages and sours over time, it can be cooked and used in various dishes. So meron ako nakita mga recipes, you can use it as to make kimchi pancakes, kimchi rice, and food, other dishes. So let's move to Atchara. It's also spelled as Atchara or Atchara in Tagalog. So it's made from salted grated green papaya with other ingredients such as green pepper, carrot, ginger, and garlic that are sliced in desired sizes. So it's consumed by Filipinos usually as a side dish with grilled and fried dishes. Upon research, I found two ways of making achara. So the first one is by cooking all the ingredients together with vinegar and sugar for longer shelf life. The second is by boiling the vinegar and just pouring it into the mixture of the vegetables. So this is usually done for achara na for daily consumption. So similar principle with kimchi, no? So first is the raw materials. One critical factor in making achara is the maturity of the green papaya. So green papaya should be harvested at the proper maturity stage. The green papaya should be green and very firm. And once papaya starts to ripen, acidity decreases and flesh becomes too soft for pickling. So maapektuhan talaga yung product. So the second and the third is the brining and fermentation. So the salted green papaya is fermented from an hour to overnight, depending on the storage temperature, pH, and salt concentration. So usually the green papaya is soaked in salt for an hour to up to overnight, depending nga dun sa temperature. So this is done similar with kimchi. This is done to draw out the water or to decrease the moisture content of the papaya. And the salt provides a suitable environment for lactic acid bacteria to grow. So similar lang din, same principle. After the fermentation or after the brining, the remaining water in the papaya is squeezed out using a cheesecloth, or others use their hands with gloves in small batches. Last is the addition of pickling solution for the achara. So heated pickling solution is hot filled which should be done above 80 degrees Celsius into the container. This is done especially in glass jars. So if in polythene pouches, the pickling solution should be cooled to room temperature prior to filling, since the pouches are not heat sensitive, or yeah. So since these pickles are not further processed, it is important to ensure good hygiene during filling. So similar with kimchi, we should store the atchara in the refrigerator and consume within 2 weeks, um, depending on the packaging material and the method of how the atchara was made. So shortcomings in preparation of fermented foods. So there's this lack of time and lack of awareness of hygiene. So cutting down on fermentation time may jeopardize the acidification of lactic acid bacteria. So dapat talaga sundin yung proper way no pag-ferment ng product. And lack of awareness of hygiene, the principles of GMP, good hygienic practices, and HACCP must be applied at all times.
Okay, thank you, Miss Olga, for the informative presentation. And now, the question and answer session is now open. Sir Justin, do you have any questions to Miss Olga? Go, sir.
So which is more recommended, ma'am, yung dry salting or yung solution? Sa brining po.
Okay. So, actually, yung base po sa nabasa ko, wala naman difference as long as ma-reach mo yung optimum na salt concentration.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, ang ginagawa niyo po ba is yung cabbage, Chinese cabbage? Yun po kasi
Yes po,
common.
ma'am, Chinese.
Doon po sa mga na-research ko is usually dry salt yung paggawa nila. Although, yun po, hindi naman siya makaka-apekto as long as na-reach yung tamang salt concentration. So, pag brine solution, dapat tataasan yung salt kasi may water yun. Dapat ma-reach nyo yung 2 to 3%.
So, paano yung niya, ma'am, yung measurement ng solution? Kasi kami nag-ano lang kami. Although naka-measure naman yung salt, yung water kasi po yung hindi naka-measure.
Brining po ginagawa nyo?
Opo, sa brining.
Dapat po i-measure. Ano siya eh?
Kumbaga, ano yung ratio po to salt to water?
If
by weight?
By weight. Ang kasi, ibig sabihin ng percentage is yung grams per 100 grams. So, if 2%, you need 2 grams of salt in 100
per 100 grams of water.
Solution. No, solution. So, 2 grams ng salt, tapos 98 grams of
okay. Water.
Yes.
So
Ganun po
tama.
yung percentage. Apo.
Ano pa ba yung question? So far, ganun naman po yung sa amin. Kaso yung water, hindi siya masyadong
I-weigh nyo na lang po. Para sure.
Hindi po kasi pare-pare yung container namin, ma'am. Kaya...
pero yun po.
I mean yung stainless.
Ano pong stainless?
But anyway,
yung basta i-measure na lang.
Yung parang bowl na yung malaki, yung stainless.
Opo.
Anyway, ano pa po ba yung tanong ko? So ano pa yung niyo, ma'am? Added parang tips.
Ano pong tips? Basta dapat po malinis. Malinis lahat kasi 'di ba hindi naman siya hinihit. So
Opo.
Dapat malinis po lahat. Like, yung mga from the start, syempre, from the start yung raw materials. So, dapat maganda lahat ng raw materials. Tanggalin yung mga wilted leaves. Yung mga ganon. Mga dumi-dumi, ganyan. And, hindi lang doon sa major raw materials. Dapat pati yung mga spices, mga pang seasonings, ganyan. Dapat walang molds, walang
Okay.
yun, start doon. Then, during brining, dapat ma-reach yung tamang salt concentration. Then, punta tayo dun sa fermentation. Dapat, yung preparation pala. Dapat malinis lahat. GMP, dapat i-follow yung GMP. Personal hygiene, linisin lahat ng mga ingredients, utensils, everything. Tapos use gloves. Kasi, syempre, yung pepper. Yeah. Then, for fermentation, kailangan i-follow yung temperature and time. Proper temperature and time.
May tanong po pala ako sa brining pala.
Sige po.
May effect po ba yung temperature sa brining?
Sa brining.
Or
Yes.
sa salt lang po siya na-affect? So, may effect po yung temperature ng surroundings?
Yes po. Kasi...
So ano yung pinaka-mainam na temperature, ma'am, para ano?
I-check po natin, sir, sa slides.
Sige po, ma'am.
So, dito po, dito sa Chinese cabbage kimchi. So, brining is carried out for 1 to 15 hours depending on the salt concentration and temperature. So, para din kasi siyang, di ba, ini-increase din po natin yung lactic acid bacteria during brining. So, mahalaga pa din yung temperature. Usually, ang lactic acid bacteria, nag-grow siya sa 21 degrees Celsius.
So below room temperature po, ma'am, no?
Aircon, yeah. Pero, I'm not sure with this, pero makaka-apekto po talaga yung temperature dun sa rate nung yung bilis nung growth ng lactic acid bacteria dun sa product.
So, dapat, hindi po maaari na tataas sa 21 degrees yung ma'am? Yung temperature ng room?
Opo, hindi po. So, aircon temperature ba ang 20? Parang aircon temperature.
Opo.
Pero, kung tried and tested, yun na po yung recipe. Pero dapat po i-follow
po and tested.
Yeah.
Pero, yun lang. Siyempre, hindi ko naman po matetest yung lab contents ng
Opo. Pero yun po, during brining and fermentation, mahalaga yung temperature and salt.
Okay. Tapos yung water pala, ma'am, may effect din po ba yung yung water na may chlorine at saka sa wala?
Saan nyo po ginagamit yung chlorinated water?
Sa cleaning po, saka hindi po kasi kami gumagamit ng chlorinated. So, I'm asking po kasi medyo mahal po kasi pag non-chlorinated po lahat yung gamit.
Sa cleaning po ito? Dapat po
Sa cleaning at saka sa brining po.
Pag
hindi
brining,
po kami gumagamit kasi ng chlorinated na
okay.
water.
Actually, recommended siya for cleaning, yung chlorinated water.
Okay.
Ilang ppm? 50, I think, ppm ng chlorine water.
Yung chlorine water ng tap water namin, ma'am, okay na po yun.
Yung tap water
Pasado
po, yung tap water po dapat lalagyan pa siya ng, pwedeng gamitin po zone rocks. Tapos pa siya, i-compute, i-mix para maka-reach ka nung certain ppm.
Hindi po pala top water, yung na po, may chlorine na po pala yung tubig.
Meron na po kayong ganun. Baka enough na
Hindi,
yun,
from
sir.
sa supply po dito sa amin, yung parang may nilad lang po na ano, distilled ba yun?
Ah, tas ang sabi po nila, chlorinated sila,
Hindi,
sir.
ang ginagamit po kasi namin, yung household water, yung from sa mga water, ano, ganun.
Water
Distilled
refilling
po ba yun?
stations po.
Hindi
Ah,
po. Sa municipal, ano po, yung parang may nilad, parang ganun.
so, tap water, sir.
Tap water ba yun? Oo.
Opo, tap water po siya. So,
So,
tap water,
kailangan pa rin may, ano, may chlorine, ganun.
chlorine. Opo, hindi po for brining, for cleaning lang po. Dapat may chlorine pa din.
Okay.
Opo, for
Sa
cleaning.
brining, dapat wala ng chlorine.
Wala na po.
Oo, okay po. Kasi medyo mahal po kasi yung ano, yung hindi po cost effective yung non-chlorinated.
Paano hindi po cost effective?
Kasi mahal po yung, kasi gumagamit po kasi kami ng ano ma'am, from mineral water talaga.
Ayun po, mura lang naman po yun. Yung ginagawa po
Mo,
namin sa lab, para makagawa ng chlorinated water, gagawa kami ng
mm,
marami. Ah,
na tubig.
opo. Tapos, paano ba? Basta higher concentration. Gagawa kami ng, siguro mga 2 liter. Tapos, yun po yung, parang
Kasi
maliit lang pala
yung
yun.
actually yung ginagamit kasi namin ma'am, almost 30 gallons na yung ano for one batch
Dami.
for cleaning and brining.
Basta sir, yung dapat po lagyan ng chlorine. Chlorinated water. Hindi po
Pero
dapat tap
sa
water.
ano naman po no, sa brining po importante na wala yung chlorine no.
Opo, opo. Opo.
So sa cleansing na lang yung ano,
Opo, cleaning of
may chlorine.
utensils. Opo,
Oh,
opo.
okay. Para at least makasave ng konti.
Opo, tama po. Sige po, thank you po.
Thank you, Sir Justin, for the
Thank
question.
you po.
I think this is the end of our webinar. For more questions,
Opo.
please feel free to email us at marketing.filpetinc@gmail.com. And see you on our next webinar. Thank you and stay
Sige
safe.
po. See you.
Everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Ingat
Thank you
din po.
po.